Chapter 17. The Punishment. The plans to go to the Great Fairy Forest had changed. Not all the groups would go at the same time, they would do it next year. Only the group that would go in search of the petals of the three trees, Poor, Curtis and Savannah, was preparing. Since autumn had only a few weeks left, once they were with them, they would plan the next visit on another date. A few days had passed after the punishment order. It was November 1, 2006. The group had established teams to visit the Great Fairy Forest. Many returned to their homes to tell their families what had happened. Some families they were upset and planned to punish some of the boys in the group. Other parents were not interested in the situation, and other boys did not even return home to report what had happened. When everyone was gathered at the ranch, they were getting their companions ready to leave that morning for the Great Fairy Forest. The horses supplied the last time by Roger on the night of the infiltration of the school were in stables built in the lower part of the Asgard Ranch, where Daniel, Alvord, Marycross and Gavin proceeded to get their saddles ready and mount their horses to begin riding. While they were ready on their horses, Daniel's mother, Mrs. Carrie Black, and her husband, Daniel's father, Daniel Black too, to wish them luck on the trip, and she packed some chocolate donuts and sandwiches for the road. Daniel Black too? Adrian asked in a sarcastic tone. So you are the three? Said Louis. Well, yes. My grandfather was called Daniel. My father was the same and I was the same. I think my son will be called Daniel Black IV. It is the tradition for generations. Ha, ha, ha. Black answered. Mr. and Mrs. Black returned home after delivering the provisions, packed the treats into their backpacks, and left for their destination. The ride began, advancing through the streets of Green Hills, leaving them and finally reaching the meadows. The center of the town could be seen in the distance. After a few hours of riding, they finally arrived at the Great Fairy Forest. There, everyone got off their horses and left them near a passing hotel that was at the entrance to the forest trails. This transit hotel was called Lana's Place, where the owners were ladies called Jessie and Clarabelle, cousins of Amapanda, who had her transit hotel on the frozen route called Alana's Place. And like said transit hotel in that cold place, this had stables, a 2-story wooden cabin, a dome like a blue and white tent, and a weather vane at the top, with a rooster and the cardinal points, which always showed him the speed of the breeze and which cardinal point it was blowing. These transit hotels also had a department store, where they sold elixirs, potions, antidotes, food and weapons. Ready? We will start on the path where the three trees are. It is the one in the center, said Black. Here I have 3 photographs of the trees. I found them in an old book of exotic trees so we can identify them. Professor Digo Calders in literature class gave it to me, said Marycross as she took the photographs out of her pocket. Excellent. I think it's excellent that you take the literature class. Most of us don't take that course, said Gavin, congratulating his friend. It's one of my favorite lessons. One day I would like to be a historian of ancient literature and help with my knowledge. People, count on me to investigate and get information from any type of book. I love reading, mentioned the girl. Marycross, you are an excellent friend. It is great to hear that and to be able to have someone like you in the group, said Black. Let's hope the trees still have their flowers. Autumn is not over yet, but you never know, Alvord added. And Black shouted to start walking. The group advanced along the forest path. In the depths of the foliage and paths, enemies such as snakes, crows, mushrooms and pixies appeared again. After finishing them off and after about 40 minutes of walking, they arrived at the place of the 3 trees. The forest appeared before them and looked like a large garden. There were the 3 trees. They were positioned in a row. First was the poor tree, a huge tree about 10 meters high. Its flowers were red, its petals seemed small knives. Who will climb to lower the petals? asked Gavin. We will divide. 1 tree for each one, answered Marycross. There is 1 person left on the outside, said Black. Then that will be me. Ha ha ha, said Gavin. Why? Marycross asked curiously while arching her eyebrows. A fearful person is afraid of heights, Albert interrupted. It didn't need to be said, said Gavin disdainfully. Poor boy, he's afraid of heights, said Marycross as she spoke like a child to Gavin while touching his cheeks. Well, yes, I get dizzy, I get vertigo, I'm scared. I'll stay here. I'll catch the bouquets of flowers while you throw them at me from up there, said Gavin. Whatever you want, Black responded. Marycross went up first on Poor's tree, and when he got to the first bunch of flowers, he cut them off and gave them to Gavin. Hey, fearful. Ha ha ha. There go the flowers, Marycross shouted as he threw the flowers from the heights. Ha ha. How funny, Marycross. Gavin responded with a bitter expression, waiting for the bouquet to fall so he could put it in his backpack. The second tree was the savannah tree, a tree about 10 meters high, with a thick stem and on its branches, many pink flowers, where its petals were similar to a petunia. Albert climbed this tree, and Gavin was waiting for the bouquets of flowers to put in his backpack. This tree is identical to the great saku tree at the school. Could they be the same tree? Asked Albert. No, they are different. The height, their stem, their flowers, they look similar. But they are 2 different breeds, Gavin answered. I was already saying, come here if Samantha could give us some flowers of the great saku tree of the school, but now I understand. They are not the same, said Albert. Finally, Black ascended the third tree. It was the Curtis tree, an ancient tree, also about 10 meters high, and its yellow flowers looked like a bell. Black took the first bouquets he reached for and gave them to Gavin. Finally, when they had the 3 types of flowers, they returned along the path and returned to the ranch. Once at the ranch, the boys took the flowers and petals, bathed them in a special liquid that Flowerdeli recommended so that the flowers would not lose life and color like some kind of stuffing. The boys decided to visit the Great Fairy Forest again after the holidays. They spent Christmas and New Year, and a new year had begun. On January 4, 2007, they met again to go as a group on their horses to the Great Fairy Forest. Once there, at the entrance to the trails, they began to devise a plan. Listen, me, Marycross, Albert and Gavin will stay here, waiting until you return. If you need help, don't forget to whistle as loud as possible, said Black, and everyone answered, okay. Roger, Louis, Adrian and Priscilla began the journey along the path on the right. Since the one in the center was the one with the trees and the one on the left was the one with the possible sanctuary of the summons of the 3 fairy sisters, the 4 began to walk, where they also found the same enemies as the other group of boys. After half an hour of walking, they arrived at a part of the forest where there were only pine trees. It seems that here the forest changes its tone and its foliage, Louis mentioned while stroking some leaves on a branch that reached to the ground. Yes, there are only pine trees in this area. Their thin leaves make the sunlight shine directly on them. The ground, added Roger, as you can see, the ground has turned orange due to the dryness of the pine needles, said Adrian. That means we are in the right place. The orange ground could be a sign. Priscilla added. Where could the orb be? Asked Louis. At that, an orange fox with a large furry tail appears to them and says the following. Hello young travelers, I deduce that you are looking for the orb of this forest, guys. That fox just spoke to us, said Roger, pointing at the scary fox. Do you know how to talk? Asked Louis, surprised. Incredible. Adrian shouted. Yes. That's what we're looking for. Priscilla responded to the fox. Don't be scared. I'm not on the side of evil. I'm one of the guardians of the orb for more than 100 years. And it's a pleasure to announce to you that they are in the right place, said the fox. Where can we find the orb? Asked Roger. Decipher the riddle of the pine forest. In one of them, a home is hidden, where the orb lies, from its illuminate, mentioned the fox. Should we decipher a riddle? Adrian asked as he crossed his arms. That's right, young travelers. Just look at the pine forest, don't let the home oak forest confuse you, said the fox. After walking meters under the foliage of the pine trees, they found a trunk with a hole. And when they were in front of that trunk they thought the following: could it be that the orb is in that hole? Adrian asked. We should go up and take a look. A look, Lewis responded as he approached the tree and touched its bark. It must be that one, said Roger, when suddenly they heard another voice saying, Not yet, young travelers, but you are on the right track, replied a voice in the branches of the trees. Who said that? Asked Priscilla. The boys were scared and looked around. In the hole of the pine trunk, an owl came out, which was another of the guardians of the orb in the forest. It told them, Now you need to put together the cycle so that it is the sign of the called the cuckoo of the forest, said the owl. The cuckoo of the forest? Adrian asked strangely. Show the forest that you know the life cycle of plants. You are students of the House of the Jade Clovers. No? Your knowledge and love for plants and nature are within you. Use your instincts, replied the owl as he turned his head. I think I know what you mean. Let's go to the oak forest, said Roger with a happy expression. Roger and the others detoured for a moment and entered the oak forest. That place was full of oak trees. Roger told the others that the owl was referring to exemplifying the life cycle of a plant. So they started looking for all kinds of greenness and dryness in the leaves of these trees. Once they found the leaves, they returned to the pine forest and Roger began to put together the life cycle of the plants in the soil. He placed the youngest leaves to the oldest in the shape of a circle. The greenest leaves changed their shape, tone until reaching the yellow and brown flowers in the position of the cycle. At the end, the leaves began to shine and the owl said to them, I congratulate you, young man. Your instinct and qualities of your house are within you. You are a true jade clover, lover of plants and nature. The owl began to hoot and in the distance, the cuckoo could be heard answering the song, so the owl told the boys to follow the sound of the cuckoo's song. They began to follow the sound until they found a tree with a small door. Like a small home in the bark, the door opened and a small orange and black bird came out, began to flutter around them, when one prostrated itself on the Roger's hands and it began to shine. An orange sphere had remained in Roger's two joined hands. It was the orange orb. All the boys were happy that they had found the last orb. They quickly returned to where they were: Daniel, Gavin, Mary Cross and Alvord. Finally, Mariah and Angelica continued along the left path, carrying the flowers of the savanna, Curtis and poor trees, as an offering for the summon. They began to advance along the path, eliminating the enemies in these areas, until they found an open area, which was a plain with grass, a flower garden, and a small tree whose bark seemed to have turned into stone. That same rock-like tree had hundreds of cocoons of butterflies, cicadas, dragonflies, a hive of ants in one part of its trunk, and all kinds of insects. There, a large monarch butterfly with orange and black wings approached them and said, Welcome to the sanctuary of the three fairy sisters. Your offerings will be welcome at the bases of the tree of metamorphosis. The big butterfly left and the girls began to carry the petals of the flowers and put them next to the tree with buds. Then they did the act of reverence and the song of faith began to play and the three fairy sisters appeared: May, Zay, and Faye, the dragonfly girl, the queen ant girl, and the morpho butterfly girl. The summoning of the three fairy sisters was with the group and had joined Angelica. Ready? Let's go to the boys to let them know that we have it, said Angelica. Yes, let's go. Mariah answered. And they both returned along the path until they reached the others. Roger, Adrian, Louis and Priscilla were about to arrive. Once everyone was gathered at the point that Black said, there was joy because they had managed to obtain the summon and the orange orb. Let's go back to the ranch to celebrate, said Daniel. Everyone mounted their horses and returned to the ranch. Already at the barracks, it was around 4 in the afternoon. The other boys who were at the ranch began to applaud after the others arrived. Later, in the meeting room, they discussed what had happened. Excellent. Well done. Very good work from all of you. I'm proud, said Black, thanking her friends. Finally, we have them all. Marycross shouted with joy. The collection is complete, added Mariah while jumping for happiness. 7th year, here we come. Priscilla said happily. Black, put it with the others on the tray, Gavin said, and Black took the orange orb and put it on the tray next to the others, and all the orbs began to glow, forming an incandescent ring of light for a while, which surprised everyone and fulfilled the theory of that, if all the orbs were gathered, they were going to act differently, and they did. Well, mission accomplished. When we return to the school in May, we must take this to Professor Berenice so that she can call the minister and approve us for the 6th year, said Gavin. That afternoon everyone celebrated big with pizza and drinks. Months passed and finally the suspension order had ended. On April 30, 2007. Everyone had to return to the school again to find out what the future held for them and to meet the minister of the city council's Department of Education.